Welcome to Discover Indie Film. I'm Jeff Howard, and I have with me on Zoom all the way from Australia, from Melbourne, yes?
Melbourne, yeah.
Leo Berkeley. Hi, Leo.
Yeah, hi, Jeff.
It's great to talk to you. For me, this was a long time coming. For people who listen to this podcast, they kind of know that I run two film festivals, Film Invasion Los Angeles and Sherman Oaks Film Festival. They're both based in LA. And one of my joys is meeting all the filmmakers and filmmakers who can't make it out to the festivals, especially when, Lord knows the flight from Australia to Los Angeles is over 20 hours, I believe. So
Yep.
We don't expect everyone to attend. So it's so much fun to get to talk to you here on Zoom.
Yep.
The second part of your introduction is that you wrote, directed, and produced and starred in the short film Dark Matter. And now I'm going to say, I first saw it because it was submitted to Film Invasion Los Angeles in 2025. Myself and the rest of our jury just loved it. And it was an official selection. We screened it at the theater. It was wonderful that your cinematographer, Ptolemy Colviner, and your daughter, actually, I didn't remember which, you said you have 4 daughters.
Yeah, it was Juliet.
Juliet made it out, and it was wonderful to have them. They were wonderful presents at the festival, I have to say. They came to the opening night gala. They came to screenings. They talked to everyone. It was really a wonderful experience to get to tell you how great the film is.
Yeah.
And Dark Matter took home the Filmmakers Award for Outstanding Cinematography in a Drama, and that was for Ptolemy. And you also won the Filmmakers Award for Outstanding Originality in a Drama, and that was both at Film Invasion Los Angeles in 2025. Then the film was again selected by our jury for Sherman Oaks Film Festival 2025. Again, the Filmmakers Board sat down and said, you know what, we're giving this film the award for Outstanding Originality in a Short Film. So, it really tells you what a unique project it is that it keeps winning awards with the word originality in it.
Yeah.
And then the last step was you were kind enough to submit to Film Invasion Lima for the first year of our expansion festival down in Lima, Peru. And down in Lima, Peru, Dark Matter won the Grand Jury Award for Best Short Drama. So, bravo.
Yeah, that was great.
Bravo.
Yeah, thanks.
And people who want to learn more about you and your work, listen to the podcast before this one. This podcast is just a fun one where Leo's going to answer the Discover Indie Film 4 questions, which are question 1 is name 3 films that you love. Question 2 is name a film you feel is underrated. Number 3 is a film you feel is overrated. And number 4 is a lesser known film that people should seek out. Obviously, as a festival runner, I just love talking about movies, and I will always believe that once you know someone's favorite films, you've got a little insight into who they are.
Yep.
So here we go. You want to name 3 favorites?
Yeah. I quite often get asked, what's your favorite film? And I have an answer to that, and it's Paisa by Roberto Rossellini. I don't know if you've heard of that one, Jeff, but it was made in 1945 or 46 by the great Italian neorealist director Roberto Rossellini. And it was shot like in the final stages of the Second World War. And when I saw it, I knew it had a reputation, like it had a good reputation. And when I saw it for the first time, I was a bit sort of underwhelmed. I sort of thought, what's all the fuss about? And then I saw it a second time. And the second time I saw it, I thought, this is the greatest film ever made. But it's not a show-offy sort of film. He's a very sort of humble director. But it's just a profoundly kind of humanistic sort of film. It's actually made up of 6 short stories set in Italy as the Americans retake Italy from the Germans. There's a segment in Sicily and in Naples and Rome and Florence. It's just every one of them is just yeah, magnificent. So that's one. And then the second one, I thought, because I've got so many films I love, but I thought, what's my favorite LA movie? Because you're in LA. And probably to answer, I'd say The Long Goodbye, which is a 1973 movie, I think, directed by Robert Altman, um, based on a Raymond Chandler novel, with Elliot Gould as the detective character. Um, and that, I think that's the film I've seen the most times. When I was younger and obsessively watching movies, I used to keep lists of the films I saw and how many times I saw them. And I think I've seen The Long Goodbye at least 20 times. Um, and back then, that was before, VHS and DVD and streaming. You pretty much had to watch it in a cinema. So I was very committed to watching that film over and over. Um, but yeah, that's a great film. And then the third film, I thought, like these days, I'm not watching films so much, but I am watching a lot of series. I'm not sure if this is outside the rules, Jeff, but for me, this we're in a kind of golden age of um, like quality television, um, and probably my favorite. So the third one I'd like to nominate is a TV, like a streaming series, and that probably would be one called The Leftovers, um, which is by Damon Lindelof. Um, and that's an amazing series. There's 3 seasons of it, but the premise of that series is 2% of the world's population just suddenly disappear, just in an instant, um, and the series is really looking into that. And as you're watching it, you keep thinking this is going to be about finding out what happened, but actually, it's after a while you realize it's not going to be about that. It's really about the grieving process for the people who were the leftovers. Um, but that's like it's sort of got a gloomy atmosphere, but that's a great series. And the first 2 seasons are set in different parts of the US, and then halfway through the third and final season, all the main characters decide to go to Melbourne in Australia. Um, and yeah, that I mean, I was completely unaware of that, but yeah, the last 6 episodes are shot in the city where I live, and yeah, that was kind of interesting too. Um, there's a famous in the 50s. There was a film about the end of the world. I forget what it was called, but it was like a post-nuclear story, and I think Ava Gardner was the main actress. And she said Melbourne was a good place to make a film about the end of the world. Uh, um, but yeah, anyway, so The Leftovers would be my third recommendation.
By the way, I'll
Uh,
share that the reason I Leo saw me laugh on Zoom because I have been asking my wife to watch I've wanted to stream The Leftovers for years. I keep going, every time it's time for a new binge, I say, how about we do The Leftovers? I hear The Leftovers is great. And she's yet to say yes, but you've just given me more ammunition.
no, I'd totally recommend that. It's great, and season 2 is even better than season 1, and season 3 features Melbourne. So what more can you ask for?
What more can you ask for? And I'll say Paisano and The Long Goodbye. Yeah, I love that you brought in Altman because I'm actually third generation Los Angeles. And I mean, obviously he's done so many films, but he does sort of have a special spot in his heart, I think, for LA. Because
Yeah, okay, yeah.
you know what I mean? Like from Shortcuts to, you know, you know what I mean? Like just but anyway, makes me want to watch more Altman. But
Yep.
all right, well, question number 2 is a film you feel is underrated.
Underrated. Yeah, okay. I gave this a little bit of thought, and I mean, again, I'm going to sort of do it as underrated within a certain genre. So I quite often, these days I spend a lot of time on my iPad and I'm constantly getting lists sent to me like, the best science fiction films, um, the best westerns. Um, but yeah, I occasionally get like the best film noirs, and I'm really into film noir as a genre. And I'm always really disappointed that I think there is one film noir that's easily the best example of the genre. But often it's not even on the list of the top 10. Um, so I think it's underrated as a film noir. But that film is out of the past. Um, which stars Robert Mitchum, and it's directed by Jacques Tourneur, who was a very elegant sort of Hollywood director in the 40s and 50s. He also did The Cat People, which is one of the great sort of low budget horror films. Um, but anyway, Out of the Past it's got everything that you want in a film noir. It's got a great femme fatale. It's got a hardball detective. It's got a really kind of charismatic villain. It's got amazing dialogue, and I just totally recommend people watching that if they don't know it. Um, I always remember one of my favourite lines of dialogue comes from that film, where he's being driven around. I think it's Los Angeles actually, by this sort of sexy female taxi driver. And at a certain point, she says to Robert Mitchum, "You're looking troubled." And he said, "Yeah, I can see the picture, but I can't see the frame." And I really like that as a piece of dialogue.
For sure. That's such a that's wonderful dialogue, especially within a film.
Um, so, have you heard of Out of the Past?
I have not. See, it is clearly not getting its just due.
Yeah.
Um, because
Well,
I hadn't heard of it.
I love all the classic, Double Indemnity and The Big Sleep and examples of that genre. But yeah, Out of the Past, you just can't beat it.
Oh, excellent, excellent. I will. I gotta add it to my list. Gotta add it to my list. And I hadn't seen Paisan either, so obviously I want to see that. Um, well, here's the fun question. Number three is a little fun can be, which is a film you feel is overrated.
Yeah, okay. I'm going to nominate Citizen Kane for that one because for decades, I mean, it's not so much now, but for decades, I'm 68, and so yeah, for a really long time, that always was nominated as the best film ever made. Um,
Always, it was always number one.
yeah, when they did critics polls and stuff like that. Um, and it just doesn't do it for me. I mean, I'm impressed by, um, I guess, how it was made and how revolutionary it was. But just as an experience of, I mean, I actually think it's very problematic when you make films about the rise and fall of a character. Like someone who starts little, becomes great, but then um, what happens as they decline. And there's a few films like There Will Be Blood, the Paul Thomas Anderson film, that's similar. But yeah, like rise and fall things, like the rise is usually exciting, but the fall can be really boring. Um, and I think Citizen Kane is a little bit like that. But I just find the experience of watching it not that, like, I'm not that impressed by it.
I am with you. I'm with you. I was one of those. Yes, when it was. I believe I even saw it as part of a film studies class, and the professor said that he considered uh, The Magnificent Ambersons a better film. Like, he was
Yeah,
even
well,
right. He was saying, Citizen Kane was groundbreaking, technically brilliant in all these ways. But yeah, when you go back and watch it, this story is just not as engaging, right? And you need to really care about a character, and nothing really makes me care about Kane.
yeah. And Yeah, oh yeah, it's a very show-offy sort of style, um, which there's a place for that. But as I said, my favorite film, Pisa, that's the opposite. That's a very like he's got a very humble style, and it's not like a like for me, Citizen Kane. I describe that style as a look at me style. It's and people like Tarantino sort of make films that way a bit too. Um, and there's a place for it. There's films I like done that way, but yeah, I much prefer the Rossellini approach with Pisa.
Yeah, yeah, and I'll just add, I'll just to chime in with you and and join in that I always also found Citizen Kane to feel a bit dated, right? Whereas other films from the era, you know, I mean, it's often on people's list, but like when I watch Casablanca, it feels completely fresh and it doesn't feel dated to me. A lot of
Yep,
films I watch, old films from that era are just still feel immediate and engaging and and alive to me. And some films feel dated and of their time, and I certainly think that Citizen Kane feels dated and of its time when I haven't seen it for a long time, but every I saw it a few
yep,
times as a younger person and always thought, yeah, no, it's not the greatest.
yep.
All right, well, you've already done a wonderful job of naming films I hadn't seen, but question number four is name a lesser known film that people should seek out.
Well, the one I wanted to, because as well as film noir, the style of filmmaking I like the most is the French New Wave. Like I really like that whole group of filmmakers, like Godard, Rivette, Truffaut. Um, but the film I want to nominate is one by Jacques Rivette called Céline and Julie Go Boating. Um, have you heard of that one?
No, Sailing and
Uh, well, that's an amazing film. It's it's a short film for Rivette. It's only 3.5 hours long, because he's famous for making really long films. Um, but yeah, and it's a girl buddy movie, and it's very colourful and fun, and it's almost impossible to describe. It's like wildly creative, and it sort of riffs off Alice in Wonderland and Marcel Proust, and it's about these two women who are kind of friends, and they discover this house, and when they sort of knock on the door, they sort of walk in, and then they sort of get thrown out sometime later, and they've got a lolly in their mouth. And when they suck on the lolly, they start to remember what happened inside the house. Um, and that's revealed as a sort of a weird story about a man and two women and a little girl. And it seems like the little girl's in danger. And so the two main characters, Sally and Julie, who are sort of feature in the house as the kind of maids, they decide to try to rescue the little girl. Um, but you just have to watch it. It's an incredible bit of filmmaking. And I was obsessed with Rivette um, at that time. And when it came out um, in Australia, they said they were going to screen it in Sydney, and I wasn't sure it was ever going to get to Melbourne. So me and a friend drove up. I was working full time, but we drove up to Sydney on the Saturday, watched the 3.5 hour films 3 times, and then drove back on the Sunday night. Um, and yeah. So that was I was determined to see the film, but it's really worth watching.
excellent, excellent. I did pull it up on IMDb as you were talking about it, and it honestly even the poster looks delightful.
Yeah.
It's a
No,
very
it's a lot,
it looks very original.
and it's a
And
lot of fun to watch.
yeah, it looks really fun and humorous. There you go. Excellent. Well, wonderful list. Although, boy, you gave me a lot of homework.
Yeah.
I'm gonna,
Okay.
I'm gonna catch up on these films. Amusingly, the one I've seen, the only one that you named, I've seen The Long Goodbye and I've seen Citizen Kane a few times, and the rest I've all got to see sometime.
Okay.
But I appreciate the references, and I'm sure everyone else does too.
Yeah. Great.
Excellent. All right. Well, I will wrap us up. Thank you, Leo, for taking the time to hop on the podcast from Melbourne, Australia. It's always fun to talk to someone like yourself who made such a great film, and it was great to hear your taste in cinema. Everyone should go to the show notes of this podcast and click the link to Leo's website, leoberkeley.com, so you can see Leo's films. And it's funny, we don't take the time to put the recommendations in the show notes.
Yep.
So people listening, you got to type that on your phone while Leo's saying them. So just back up, play it again, and then you'll know that you want to see which films you want to see. But I will thank Leo one more time.
Yep. Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you. And thank you, everyone, for listening. If you want to learn more about this podcast, Discover Indie Film, where we talk to filmmakers whose work has been on the festival circuit, just go to discoverindiefilm.com. On social media, it's always at DIFwins. If you go to discoverindiefilm.org, that is the nonprofit that runs the Sherman Oaks Film Festival and Film Invasion Los Angeles. They're both based here in LA. We have Sherman Oaks in the winter and Film Invasion Los Angeles in the summer. Whoop, I just bumped that. And there we go, 2 festivals. And those two, in January of this year, their cousin in South America was born, Film Invasion Lima. And I can finally say that I think the first film ever to play all 3 festivals would be Leo Berkeley's Dark Matter.
Yeah, it was great.
There we go. And it pulled in. I already at the top of the podcast, I mentioned all the awards. I won't mention them again, but thank you. I'm so glad you made Dark Matter because it really is a special film. And it was great to hear your taste in films.
Yeah. Thanks, Jeff.
All right. Thank you, Leo. And thank you, everyone, for listening.